So the big question is this. Why well-being conscious women just like us who want to live healthy and happy life are constantly feeling vulnerable like, what if I get attacked? And so many people who teach self-defense are tough men or martial artists who don't seem to understand what women really go through every day. How can we feel safer and be more confident in our personal safety? That is the question, and this channel gives you the answer. My name is Kinko Hamilton, and welcome to Rise Up Against Violence. Hi, welcome to the show. Today, I'm so excited to have Britney Smith with us. I came across with her through Women's Self-Defense Summit Facebook page, and she shared with us the home invasion story that she had to go through, and I was really touched. And now she is a certified firearm instructor at Royal Range, Nashville, Tennessee. Brittany, welcome to Rise Up Against Violence.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, so excited to have you. So I just quickly mentioned that you had home invasion experience. Would you mind sharing that story with us?
Yeah, sure. So, over 10 years ago, I was at a friend's house and their sister was coming home. And five young men actually saw her walking by herself down the street and followed her home. And she wasn't able to get into the door faster than they were able to follow her. So one of the young men actually made it inside, and then the others were stuck outside trying to make their way in as well. So it was three young girls stuck inside the house, four trying to get in, and one inside. So eventually, the four additional young men made their way inside the house with us in there. And this was before cell phones, so we didn't have a way to call police or our parents or anybody. And so we were actually stuck in the home with the home invaders while they decided what they would ultimately decide to do with us.
I'm terribly sorry that you had to go through that. But now you're firearm instructor. So why did you choose firearms?
So it felt like a natural progression in self defense. Obviously, some of the things that immediately changed would be levels of awareness, making sure that not only I'm more aware of my surroundings, my friends are as well. And that led into some more traditional self defense techniques, grappling, hand to hand, close contact, things like that. And I continued my training on from there and became involved with firearms when I turned 21, which is the legal age in the state of Tennessee to be able to actually own a pistol. Got my first gun and then was training and went to the range that I currently work at actually as a student and did fairly well as a student. And they actually called and said, "Hey, would you be interested in possibly coming to teach here? Because we have a large demographic of women." And it was the perfect opportunity for me to share my knowledge and my history.
Hmm. So there are so many women right now. Guns are high demand, right? You can't even
Yes.
get guns, or even you are able to get guns. You can't get ammo. For those who are thinking to get guns, what would you advise? What would be your advice?
So we have a really good rental program at the range that I work at Rural Range in Nashville, and we've got over 50 firearm rentals. My biggest suggestion would be go someplace like that locally and test out firearms before you decide what to purchase. And obviously, you're going to be able to find something somewhere, but pick the gun up, make sure that it fits your hand well. It's something that you're comfortable with and something that you would carry on your body if that's what you so choose to do. If your ultimate goal is concealed carry, pick a firearm that feels comfortable for you, not something that your husband or parents or somebody else suggests, because it may not be something that you really feel comfortable with. And that's the ultimate goal, is something you're comfortable with enough and confident enough with that you're going to carry it every day.
Hmm. But Brittany, normal day, right? You going to grocery store or just walk, go for a walk, take a walk. When something happens though by self-defense law, you can't really pull a gun, can you?
No, you can't.
Right. So you can't pull out the gun, but you carry a gun. But is there anything else you do in place of gun, using uses of a gun in for self defense?
Yeah, sure. So one of we call those less than lethal methods. So obviously, we don't want to escalate to a level of force that's in an immediate firearm draw. So you're going to assess the situation and determine what you need to do from there. If it's somebody who is a possible threat, but they don't have a firearm, you need to evaluate, do you have other form of a protection measure on you? That could be a knife if you carry one, mace, or some type of spray. They have those cat ear knuckle, you can wear them around your knuckles now, and even a pair of keys. That's something that we teach, is because the majority of the time, if we're outside of our house, we have some form of a key on us, and that can actually easily be used as a weapon.
Hmm.
We always highly suggest some form of training to go along with it, because when you're in such close quarters with somebody else, as small as most women are, or the perpetrator is statistically going to be a male, their size and strength may overcome us. So, training for situations where if you get in that position and a set of keys or a knife, something like that, is what you have on you, you still have to learn how to properly use those techniques to defend yourself.
So let's talk
But
about keys and knives because I just, ask you about the gun. If somebody, let's say, in your face, push you, grab you, you can pull out the gun. You can't pull out your knife either, can you?
right, right. Once they get to that point, most likely they're going to have a way to quickly and easily be able to control your two mechanisms, which are going to be your hands. And so it becomes more difficult. That's where you get into some more evasion techniques. We have great structure in our body. We have really sharp bones in the elbows, and those are extremely useful for pushing your way out of situations, but also using things to your advantage, like angles or your own body weight. Even though it may not seem significant, the chances of somebody being able to pull you away when you're counteracting the pull of them trying to pull your arms, your body weight becomes extremely important in those situations.
Mm,
Being able to learn how to control our body weight and structure in a way that helps us to become more evasive is important as well.
absolutely. So why would you carry knife and gun if you can't use them?
It's a protective measure of, if I do have to use them, if I do have to get to that level of force. For me, awareness is huge. And so the majority of the time, anytime I'm out, I always say cell phones are one of the biggest blessings and curse for personal safety, because it gives us the opportunity to call for help if needed. But it also gets us into a lot of unsafe situations as well, because we're usually head down. Victim selection, which I know is something we wanted to talk about today. It's when studied, a lot of criminals said that they chose people based on body language. And a huge piece of body language is where our eyes are directed. If we're passing somebody and they're within, we'd say, 21 feet of us, we need to make sure that we're recognizing that that person is coming into our passing area or passing lane with what we call the bubble of safety. If they're approaching that bubble of safety, we need to make sure that we're aware that they're coming into it, and we can kind of judge by their body language as well, possibly their intentions. If we're in a crowd, it makes it a little bit more difficult, but keeping the head up and keeping the eyes engaged, scanning your environment can ward off anything that it could buy you time. That if you do have to resort to one of the an impact weapon or even a firearm, you have the time to decide if that's what you need to start initiating.
Mm, got it. So I want to ask you about the keys. You mentioned the keys.
Mhm.
Tell me about the keys and why or how do you use it?
So keys, although they're small, they are metal, or there's some form of aluminum now. And when you use the keys in soft tissue, we have a lot of it. The legs, the thighs is a great place. anywhere in the abdomen. It's not going to be super effective on top of bone just because they're somewhat small and hard to kind of hold in your hand. But usually will have more than one key or have some form of a key ring. And that's the portion that you could use within your hand. Um, any type of it's not going to stab through as smooth as a knife would, but if you in that situation your adrenaline is going to be extremely high, which is going to give you a higher level of strength. You're actually able to use a set of keys to puncture somebody just as you would possibly with a knife.
Mm. So you carry guns. I'm not a armed person. I don't carry
Okay.
guns or knives. Now, unfortunately, as we see all over the world, the laws are changing to be more friendly, kind to the criminals.
Mm-hmm.
And even in England, there's a case, home invasion happened. That there's a couple, and the invader tried to assault his wife, right? Sexually assault his wife. So this gentleman shot this guy, and the invader got killed. And this gentleman, even though he was invaded, he got convicted of murder and had to go to jail. So there's so many things that the laws around it, when to use it, how to use it. What what do we do? Like, what, Brittany, what would you suggest us to do? So you carry them because of your safety. If you have to use them, you use them, but how do you use them?
So one of the situations that could cause you to have to use a knife or a firearm is matching force. And so if somebody's coming at you with a knife, then you would match force. In the event, however, that there's something, it's called disparity of force. So for me and for most of the women who are on this channel, so we're going to be smaller in stature. We might not have the muscle mass, the strength. We might not have been as well trained in something like hand to hand combat. But if you have somebody coming at you who's clearly stated their intent to harm you, they have the means and the intent to do so, and their intent is very clear, you can actually resort to a higher level of force due to the disparity. So if somebody, I'm 5'4", I weigh about 125 pounds. If I have somebody who's over 6 feet tall and over 200 pounds coming at me, and they've made it clear that their intent is to harm me, I can result or I can move into a higher level of force because the bodily harm that they could do to me would be much worse than what somebody who is also 200 pounds that they could do to them. They're going to harm me much more than they would harm somebody that would be their own size.
Mm.
This is where it becomes important to understand the laws in the country or the state that you live in and what's considered a level of self-defense that it would be reasonable for any layman or jury to think that it was reasonable for somebody your size to result to.
Mhm.
So um, in the state of Tennessee, where I live, and actually a lot of states across the U.S., is again, it means intent, and ability. If they've made those clear, and I feel like I am in fear of and jeopardy of my life or serious bodily harm, and I'm able to articulate why I decided to choose the method of self-defense that I chose, then it's unlikely that I would be charged criminally because I did have a reason, and any other reasonable person who saw the situation for what it was would agree with that. Now, again, we don't want to automatically move into something like knives or guns because we do want to make sure we're properly assessing the situation. And for us, um, the thought is we hope we never have to get to that level. We hope we're well trained enough that we have a completely, number one, avoided the situation entirely. But for some reason, if for some reason something comes up on us and we're not able to avoid it entirely, we have to make that split second decision of what do I think is the adequate level of force needed to control this situation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Brittany, for such a great explanation. Now, I'd like to change your gear a little bit and ask you about normalcy bias, because I believe this is a huge part of self-defense. Uh, the problem that we don't teach women enough.
Yes.
Yeah, that is the huge factor that dictates our self-defense ability. So, Brittany, I would love to know what your thoughts on normalcy bias.
Sure. So I'll start with explaining what we consider to be normalcy bias and how it affects us. Um, I wouldn't say that all humans inherently want to believe that other humans are good natured, but what we do a lot of the time is we don't want to believe that we're in a possibly threatening situation. And so we'll actually talk ourselves out of our intuition and we'll say, this person, I have that gut feeling that something is not quite right, but we'll actually talk ourselves out of it, which is what we call normalcy bias. We want to assume that everything is completely normal. And a lot of women, this is a common technique that perpetrators actually use to capture and assault women. They'll come up to you on the street, possibly, and most likely you'll be by yourself, and they'll say, "Hey, do you have the time?" Or, "Hey, do you have $1?" For women, we want to make sure that we're not being rude because we have seen that um, sometimes our aggression creates aggression in the aggressor. And so sometimes we have to tone it back a bit because we think, oh, we have to make sure we're friendly because we don't want to upset this person. So we'll actually look down at the watch or we'll reach in our wallet and give them the dollar or tell them what the time is. That second that we look away is when most career criminals who are seasoned in assaults or kidnapping, things like that, that's when they take their chance uh, to harm us or other people. So when you have that intuition or that gut feeling that something's not right, don't talk yourself out of that just to be friendly. And I'm in the South, that's very hard. We're naturally friendly people. We want to make sure that we're accommodating to everybody and we'll stop and take the time to tell you what time it is or give you the dollar. But if you have that intuition that something just doesn't feel right, or you're out somewhere that it's dark or you're by yourself, I would say don't ignore that intuition and don't think that you have to be friendly to everybody because it can actually get you harmed, unfortunately.
Okay, Brittany, so you teach a lot about self-defense outside of firearms, correct?
Yes.
Excellent. So normalcy bias is one of the things you teach, and also I'm interested to know mental preparation. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so for me, I don't have any children. So when it comes to training, I'm training for myself, my friends who are close to me and maybe around me, and my family members. But that situation will change by person. If you have children, we say all the time that the number one thing a parent would defend and fight to the death for would be their children. And so understanding that it's now no longer you, but it may be their lives that you have to defend as well, or even just making sure that you don't that their mother is not taken away from them, which is would be you, or their father, which could be your husband. That's very important. And knowing what's important in your life can actually amplify the level to what you train, because you realize that I might be a little bit more sluggish or selfish. It's selfish if it's just me and thinking, I got this. But when I think of if I had small children and somebody was trying to take my child, or I want to again prevent the my child's parent from being taken away from them, that could take your training to a whole new level. Understanding what's important to you can dictate that training.
Absolutely, Brittany. I absolutely appreciate that because for me, I started martial arts. I'm a martial artist, and now I do self defense as well because they're completely different things. But I started martial arts thinking martial arts is self defense, and if I get tough in the cage, I can beat people up. Like I can be really good at self defense too. So that was the thing why I started martial arts. Then after all the injuries and concussion, I had to reevaluate my self-defense, which is heavily relying on my kicks and my kicks because I love kicking. But in
Mhm.
self-defense situation, you don't want to kick. You don't want to lose your, balance. You don't want to lose your stability. So kick is out, in my opinion, especially in standing combat if you have to fight back. But with that being said, Brittany, what do you think is missing from today's self-defense industry, especially for women?
As a woman myself and somebody who teaches self defense, I think that having a supportive and collaborative network can sometimes be hard to find in certain communities. I'm lucky to live in a pretty large city that is very accommodating when it comes to networks of women of all different interests, being able to relate through things like social media or local networking clubs and get together. But every woman may not have that opportunity. So I would say that the internet has been a great resource when it comes to that. And you may not have the opportunity to go into a physical location depending on where you're located and take some type of women's focused self-defense class, but you're able to go out to channels like yours and see things that you're doing and practice those in your own home. Create that network for yourself if it's not a physical location that you can go to. Any of us who are serious about what we do, we're going to be supportive of anybody who comes to us and asks questions and be as accommodating as we possibly can given the circumstance that, hey, I'm not able to go to a physical location. So we just we're trying to transform it to where, not to be not to say that men don't do a great job of training women, but I think that sometimes our concerns could be a little bit different. The way we train could be different. And you have to think in traditional self defense, hand to hand classes like you're heavily involved in, if it's a male instructor, their assumption is that they're fighting somebody of equal size. For us, that concern's not the same because usually that person's going to be bigger. So we're going to have to train a little bit different. And so creating a collaborative environment of both men and women who understand their client base is so incredibly important and something that I encourage all women to seek out. And like I said, any of us who are very passionate about what we do are more than happy to lead you to a resource. If we're not the one that is the ultimate resource, we'll get you where you need to be.
Fantastic, Brittany. So, ultimate question is this: what can we do? What can a woman do right now to overcome what if I get attacked anxiety or fear?
I think that confidence comes with experience. Obviously, not getting into the actual situation itself, but training in ways that makes you more confident in your own abilities, empowering yourself through your own training, through your own research, of taking the steps to understand how those situations occur and how to possibly get yourself out of that situation. um, the saying is every beginner or every professional was a beginner at some point. So instead of delaying and letting the anxiety kind of creep in of, oh, what if this does ever happen, and never really taking the steps to research it or to train for it, it can only increase our anxiety. I encourage every woman start today, and look back a year from now and just see the level of growth that you've made and the amount of confidence you've gained. And it doesn't even have to be a year from now, it could be a week from now, and just you doing some simple research or looking at videos or doing things in your own living room. Start today and just know that confidence will create that level of security that that you feel like you need.
Absolutely. Fantastic, Brittany. Is there words of wisdom or last thought you'd like to share with the audience?
Nothing too profound. I just want to thank you for having me on, and for all the people who would watch this channel. Your level of interest in starting this journey for yourself or for your family we commend you for that. It's not an easy first step, but it is a big one. And I hope that you find the resources that you need and the strength within yourself to carry this process on, because at the end of the day, it's something that could save your life. And kudos to you guys for taking the steps to do that.
Brittany's information is down below, so please go check it out. And Brittany, once again, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Would you like to get the devices from the world's top self-defense experts? If so, go on and get your pass from www.womensselfdefensesummit.com.